healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
This is the essence of what the president communicates. We've been very good to your country, very good. No other country has done as much as we have. But you know what? I don't see much reciprocity here.
Donald Trump is going to choke on this suppose nothing burger. He will go down.
This shows, I think, is the kind of anger and even hatred of this president.
And I'm going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it.
It has blinded them to the degree that they think they can make something out of nothing.
The complaint relied on hearsay evidence provided by the whistleblower.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged. An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity.
Where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Bryan Fisher.
And good Friday, everyone. Fred Jackson sitting in for Bryan over the next couple of days as he takes a little bit of a break. But I tell you what doesn't take a break is news, especially involving President Donald Trump. I tell you what, many have said it before and wonder how he continues the fight. Donald Trump, that is, in the midst of the attacks that have been there. Well, we now know, even before the election in 2016, the Democrats were doing all kinds of things behind the scenes, trying to defeat his election. And then when he won, they went totally ballistic, and they decided that they were going to wreak havoc for this president. Whether he did good things or not, they were going to wreak havoc because they really felt they deserved to win that election in 2016. Now, we all know at this point that the whole Russia collusion probe did not work out the way that they had planned, the way they had hoped, the way they had led the American people to believe. So now they have a new tool that they want to use against the president. That, of course, is this so-called whistleblower report that's been in the news all of this week. And yesterday there was a hearing before the House Intelligence Committee, and we heard from the lead person, Joseph McGuire, who is the acting director of the National Intelligence Group, and he defended their handling of this so-called whistleblowers report that talked about the president abusing his power. That was the allegation, abusing his power in the conversation with the newly elected president of Ukraine. Now, in opening that hearing yesterday, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, which is, of course, a Democrat, Adam Schiff of California, he started to, it looked like he was reading from the whistleblower's report. Now, we're going to play cut 1 here in just a second. This is Adam Schiff. Now, he's chairman of the committee, and he is leading people to believe that he is reading from this report and that he is basically quoting what the president had to say to the newly elected president of Ukraine about opening an investigation into what Vice President Biden did when he was Vice President of the United States with regards to Biden's demand that the equivalent of the Attorney General of Ukraine be fired because he was investigating a company of which a member of the board was Joe Biden's son, Hunter, getting paid $50,000 a month to show up at board meetings. All right? But that was the crux of the conversation, the telephone conversation that President Trump had with the leader of the Ukraine back in July. But Adam Schiff, supposedly reading from a transcript of that phone call, this is what he had to say. This is what Adam Schiff had to say to the American people as he opened up this hearing yesterday. Cut 1.
This is the essence of what the president communicates. We've been very good to your country, very good. No other country has done as much as we have. But you know what? I don't see much reciprocity here. I hear what you want. I have a favor I want from you, though. And I'm going to say this only 7 times, so you better listen good. I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it.
Yeah, so that was Adam Schiff, and on it went. Now, later he said, oh, come on. I was just kind of putting stuff together, the essence of what he said. But no. I mean, he wanted to mislead the American people in displaying what he thought was the tone of that letter. Basically, and I think even Schiff used the term a mafia-like ultimatum to the Ukrainian president. Well, President Trump fighting back today, he wants the resignation of Adam Schiff. Of course, he's not going to get it. But this is what the president said this morning. Representative Adam Schiff fraudulently read to Congress, with millions of people watching, a version of my conversation with the president of Ukraine that doesn't exist. He was supposedly reading the exact transcribed version of the call, but he completely changed the words to make it sound horrible and me sound guilty. He continues, Adam Schiff therefore lied to Congress and attempted to defraud the American public. He has been doing this for 2 years. I'm calling for him to immediately resign from Congress based on this fraud. It's not going to happen. But President Trump was signaling this morning, no surprise, he's going to fight back, and he will continue to fight back. You know, I was listening a little bit on Fox and Friends this morning. Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal says President Trump will choke on the Nothing Burger whistleblower complaint. Nothing Burger in quotation marks there. And so you're going to hear a little bit of that, but you're also going to hear also from the former Secretary of Education and drug czar Bill Bennett. And Bill Bennett nails it down what's behind all of this. Cut number 2.
Donald Trump is going to choke on this supposed nothing burger. He will go down with this supposed nothing burger in his throat.
What this shows, I think, is the kind of anger and even hatred of this president by his political opponents. And it has blinded them. It has blinded them to the degree that they think they can make something out of nothing. This thing has the flavor, Stephen Ainsley, of an obsession. Remember Les Miserables with Javert pursuing Jean Valjean, or if that's too highbrow, how about Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner? Wile E. Coyote, sometimes steps off the cliff, looks down, and then drops.
Right.
And I think that's what's going to happen here, because what's feeding them is not the facts.
What's feeding them is not the facts. It is hatred of this man. This is what politics has come to, folks, in this country. There are forces, and it really started with Barack Obama. Need I take you back to when it was candidate Barack Obama? You will remember his theme line of his campaign. We are going to change this country. We are going to change the world. Good gracious. He got a Nobel Peace Prize when he was in office just a few months. The world loved Barack Obama's message, the left-wing world. He wants socialism all over the world, and he wants socialism for this country. And that is what's driving the Democrats crazy, because the American people elected Donald Trump in 2016. And he has a far different agenda than what Barack Obama wanted. Bottom line. He wants, to quote President Trump, make America great again. He is a patriot. Yes, he is a nationalist. If you heard his speech to the United Nations this week, he denounced globalism. Barack Obama's a globalist. The Democratic Party, they're globalists, folks. What does globalism mean? Globalism basically means no borders anymore, folks. This is what this southern border thing is all about. Democrats don't want a secure southern border. They want 10,000 people flowing into this country every year so they can be put under the apron of the federal government and therefore depend on the federal government and keep electing Democrats forever. That is the agenda. And Donald Trump comes along and he wins the election in 2016. And that throws their program into chaos. So what is their plan of action? We are going to discredit this man every way we can. And they have a tremendous force to help them, the mainstream media. Yesterday, I could not find an Associated Press story that told the president's side of this story. It was all from the Democrat point of view. Everyone. In the minds of the mainstream media, everything that emanates from the mouth of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all the other Democrats, it's pure truth. And everything that Donald Trump says, it's lies, or any of his supporters. So that's what we're facing here, folks. That's the kind of thing that we're facing. And you have got to realize this. This is a national ideological warfare that's going on here. And the Democrats honestly believe, even though they failed with the Russia collusion, you notice how quickly that's been dropped? Isn't it amazing? All the stories, that they had about these women who said that they had physical relationships with the president, all that's gone. Russia collusion's all gone. So now they've got a new bone that they're running with. And it's not going to work either. I don't know if you saw the story that came out just a few days ago in the wake of, I guess, Tuesday's announcement of this whistleblower's complaint, and the text came out. Headline was, Trump raises $13 million after Pelosi impeachment threat. $13 million. In the 24 hours that followed Pelosi's Tuesday announcement, the campaign reported raising $5 million from online donors in all 50 states. And then there was more raised through other Republican means. That's more than the Democrat candidates got all of them together in that period of time. What's the message in that headline? The message in that headline is that the American people aren't buying the Democrat tactics anymore. They're not. And those who have read the full transcript, all the charges being made by the Democratic Party just aren't there. There's no there, as has been said before. But folks, that's where we are. That's where we are in this whole battle. And it's not about truth anymore. You've got to be, and this hatred, as we were saying, this hatred for Donald Trump, it goes beyond what's going on in Washington and the mainstream media. I don't know if you've seen this other headline. Florida teacher probed as quiz refers to Trump as idiot. A Florida middle school teacher is being investigated after a parent complained a quiz she gave students referred to President Donald Trump as an idiot. The principal at Palm Beach Gardens School sent a letter to parents apologizing and saying the teacher has been reassigned as administrators investigate the incident. Palm Beach County School District shared with the Associated Press the content of the letter sent by Watson B. Middle School Principal Philip D'Amico. Now, first of all, here's my question. That teacher would not have put that response in a quiz if that teacher didn't feel comfortable doing that in that environment. Here's what it tells me. That in the environment of that school, and I dare say in many public schools across the country, the environment now is go ahead and dump on Trump. Go ahead and dump on Republicans' teachers. Indoctrinate those students into hating Donald Trump. Can you imagine what would happen to a teacher if when Barack Obama was president of the United States and there was a quiz on a test in a schoolroom in a middle school that described Obama as an idiot? Can you imagine the uproar from the NAACP and the Democrats? This story's barely being raised anywhere, folks. Todd Starnes addressed it today. I invite you to go see what Todd Starnes has to say about it. Hey, listen, much more ahead. Our theme, indoctrination. That's what's going on across the country today against anything conservative. We're going to talk about another front in this when we come back here on Focal Point on this Friday.
What is the source of America's greatness? My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Alexis de Tocqueville, a 19th century French political thinker and philosopher, had this exact same question. On the heels of the French Revolution, he came to America in 1831 to investigate America's ascendancy. In doing so, he found that America's greatness did not lie in her economic system, it did not lie in her banking system, nor did it lie in her educational system. He found America's pulpits aflamed with righteousness was the source of America's greatness. He opined that America is great because she is good, but when America ceases to be good, she will cease to be great. Let us pray for a restoration of the flame of righteousness in our pulpits.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Dr. Richard Land, President of Southern Evangelical Seminary in Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome to Bringing Everything Captive. As I shared with you yesterday, last Monday, President Trump gave a great and historic speech at the UN on religious freedom, and it has been virtually ignored by the formerly mainstream, now sideline media. If you would like to see or hear the whole speech, you can find a link to the full video under this program on the SES app, available for free on the App Store and at Google Play. One section of the president's speech that I believe deserves special attention calls the world community to concerted action to stop heinous crimes being committed against people of faith around the globe. And I quote, "In recent times, the world also has witnessed devastating acts of violence in sacred places of worship. In 2016, an 85-year-old Catholic priest was viciously killed while celebrating Mass in Normandy, France. The past year, the United States endured horrifying anti-Semitic attacks against Jewish Americans at synagogues in Pennsylvania and California. In March, Muslims praying with their families were sadistically murdered in New Zealand. On Easter Sunday this year, terrorists bombed Christian churches in Sri Lanka, killing hundreds of faithful worshipers." End quote. Then the president continued, "These attacks are a wound on all humanity. We must all work together to protect communities of every faith, and we are urging every nation to increase prosecution and punishment of crimes against religious communities." Thank you, President Trump. This is Richard Land.
This is Focal Point with Bryan Fisher on American Family Radio.
And welcome back to the Friday edition of Focal Point. Fred Jackson sitting in for Bryan today. We want to begin this segment with a weather update. A weather update. Winter storm watches and blizzard warnings have been issued for Idaho, Montana, and Washington State. No wonder Bryan is in Washington State today. He saw this coming. A winter storm will be especially severe for parts of western Montana, where some areas could see up to 50 inches of snow.
Wow.
Out of Mississippi, I don't think there's been 50 inches of snow here accumulated over 20 years.
No.
That's in addition to heavy snow, winds are expected to gust near 50 miles per hour, which will create near zero visibility and blizzard-like conditions. Cold temperatures and wind chills are also expected Sunday in the northern Rockies and the Pacific Northwest.
Imagine that.
I wonder if Greta Thunberg is heading out to the Pacific Northwest in Montana to preach about global warming. Yeah, everybody know who Greta Thunberg is?
Yeah.
I think we know. We're joined in the studio right now by Chris Woodward, reporter for American Family News, who keeps an eye on all things weather and has been
Yes.
for quite some time.
Yes, I get that job, America. Yes.
Hey, Greta Thunberg We're talking about in the last segment the mainstream media hate Trump, love Democrats, love socialism, love globalism. They also love Greta Thunberg because she is out there making speeches. She's 16 years old?
Yes.
And out there making speeches about the dire consequences that are awaiting the world if it doesn't take seriously. And when she says doesn't take seriously, doesn't take her agenda seriously. I mean, she was condemning people left and right for not doing exactly what she wants done.
Right. Yeah, she's continuing to travel the world to save the planet. She's in Montreal today, so on the exact opposite side of Canada from where they might be getting some of that 50 inches of snow, you said, in the Montana area, and certainly, I guess, parts of Canada are probably in store for some of that, too. But yeah, Greta, she made headlines this week. She chastised members of the UN for saying, you're ruining things for my generation. You people keep talking about these things, and you don't do anything. I'm paraphrasing. I should be in school. If she's that concerned about not being in school, why isn't she in Montreal today?
Why don't we listen to some of that speech that she gave at the United Nations? It's cut number 8.
You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
And what's the prize they give out at the Academy, the Academy Awards?
Oh, the Oscar.
The Oscar goes to Greta Thunberg.
Well, her parents are in the entertainment industry, and that's not just me saying that or some of the skeptics. Even the New Yorker pointed out that her father is an actor and her mom's an opera singer, so obviously they have connections.
Listen, when I saw this on TV back a couple of days ago for the first time, I saw an actor, an actress, the way she delivered everything. I'm sure this is not the first time she gave this speech.
Oh no, she's been in front of a camera many times now. She really kind of first got attention nationally here in the States when she sailed on a boat over here to do these kinds of things. The reason she took a boat is because it would be less of a carbon footprint than flying, which is something that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren obviously don't understand. What's interesting, and the Daily Wire pointed this out, there's an article from a Daily Wire reporter named Ash Show, and she pointed out that people that were part of Greta's effort flew over here to retrieve the boat to take it back. and it wasn't just the Daily Wire saying as much. They found an Associated Press story that even said that. So she obviously is traveling the world to save the planet. And as we mentioned, she's in Montreal today to do basically the same thing there in front of Justin Trudeau and other people. I talked about this with Fred and Rob. We do not have this audio. But basically, some people have kind of dug through the internet and found out that Greta's not the first person to go to the UN to say these kinds of things. There was a young lady back in 1992 named Severn Cullis Suzuki, a Canadian national, and she chastised members of the UN at a summit in Rio back in 1992. We aired some of that audio earlier this week on Today's Issues. And Severn Cullis Suzuki talked about how she was afraid to go outside because of the ozone layer and the sunlight, and she was afraid to breathe in the air because of all the chemicals.
You know, it's insanity. It really is insanity. And they're allowed, these young people and their adult friends who are in the same camp are allowed to spew all of these warnings. I mean, let's face it, this has been going on for quite some time now. And, you know, the globalists and the concerns about the global economy being affected by global warming, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we all know they changed that to climate change back a few years ago. But, you know, this story, and she's talking in Montreal today, they're talking about global warming, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
They had to claim it. They had to change it to climate change because I remember one of their little conferences was in Washington D.C. and what was it, February or March of one year, and it was snowing outside.
Yeah, like an epic snowfall.
Yeah, so they had to change it to climate change. But here's what, and again, I go back to propaganda. This is the propaganda that is spreading through our education system. The media, I doubt very much whether Greta Thunberg, when she made this impassioned speech the other day, got any tough questions from the media.
I don't think so.
She was treated like everything that emanated from her mouth was gospel.
Right. Now, she may actually believe what she said. And that brings us to the question of, well, who told you that? And was there ever a yeah, but in whatever you were told? We know that the BBC, and I would imagine other European news outlets do this, the BBC does not ever, rarely, if ever, include an argument from a skeptic in their coverage of the climate change issue. We see similar issues here in the States with the Associated Press and other news outlets. USA Today has an ongoing series about climate change, and rarely do they ever feature somebody like a Mark Morano or a Steve Malloy of JunkScience.com, a Cal Beisner at Cornwall Alliance, things like that. So, you know, she might have been told these things by her parents, and maybe she saw them in news, she heard them in school, but I guarantee you there was never really a fair argument presented from the skeptical side, which, according to a lot of the skeptics that I interview, that's all they're asking. You know, you can teach this in the school, but please present my side fairly so that way kids get the entire side of the entire story versus what you want them to believe and then go share in front of a bunch of other people. And it's not just Greta. Today, there are students around the world that are holding climate protest. We had kids in Italy symbolically torch a replica of planet Earth to raise awareness about global warming. You had situations in New Zealand where students marched on Parliament. Another similar thing in Berlin. So it's not just Greta, there's other people, but she is kind of the new face, and a lot of them are looking up to her. Who knows what we'll be talking about 27 years from now? There might be another Greta or a Severn Kola Suzuki out there.
It's very interesting. Pastor Robert Jeffress of First Baptist Dallas was interviewed the other day. He was up in Washington when the president was giving his speech on religious freedom. And he was interviewed by Todd Starnes, and Todd Starnes asked Pastor Jeffress about what Greta Thunberg had to say about global collapse and global warming and the earth being destroyed by global warming. It's cut number 9. This is Pastor Jeffress.
Somebody needs to read poor Greta Genesis chapter 9 and tell her next time she worries about global warming, just look at a rainbow. That's God's promise that the polar ice caps aren't going to melt and flood the world again.
All right, that's Pastor Robert Jeffress of First Baptist Dallas. And that brings us to an important point, I think, Chris, to talk about this from a Christian perspective. How we deal, because our kids, Christian kids from Christian families in our public school system, universities, media are being trounced with this. And Pastor Jeffress, without intending to or not, raises the point that we have to go back to Scripture and what Scripture has to say about the future of this world.
Well, I think ultimately, and I know this is always the answer that we tend to give, but in this particular case, it's another fantastic way to use it. It all boils down to parents, because you need to be having the conversation with your children at supper time. What did you learn in school today? What are the things your teacher have told you about? And a lot of people listening do homeschool their kids. But even these days, you've got to really go over the homeschool material to find out what it is that they want your child to come away learning. So it's not just public schools, it's even the homeschool curriculum and things like that. Parents really need to be involved here. And also, you need to be going to church more often. Don't forsake the assembling of yourselves. Go to Sunday school, go to youth group, go to all kinds of things. And don't just leave it to your teachers to raise your kids.
Yeah, because what the Bible says, the Bible certainly doesn't say that the world is in danger of global warming. Now, it does talk about, the Bible does talk about climate change, and boy, that's going to happen during the tribulation. There's going to be climate change folks during the tribulation. And the Bible does say that at the end of time, this earth as we know it will burn up, and there'll be a new heaven and there'll be a new earth.
Right.
And that's what we need to be teaching our kids. It's under God's control. Now, I think, I had somebody approach me when I was teaching about this back a few weeks ago, and they said, well, does that exclude Christians from being good stewards? I said, no, of course not. I often say my grandfather was into recycling long before it became in vogue for everybody. He was a farmer. And what came out of a cow went back on the fields at some point. I mean, he recycled almost everything. So, yeah, we're supposed to be good stewards. We're to take care. If you talk about stewardship of the land, that was part, if you read the Old Testament, that you plant it for 6 years and you let it rest for 1 year. So that's stewardship. That's the kind of stewardship we're talking about. But we're certainly not talking about that we need to kill off the cows because they do emanate too many other things that are a danger. And there's science that speaks against what the Greta Thunbergs of this world. They treat carbon dioxide as a poison.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Carbon dioxide, folks, in case you don't know, is what comes out of your mouth every time you breathe and when you exhale. That's carbon dioxide. What happens to that carbon dioxide? Plants take it in.
That's right.
And the plants then give us oxygen. So do you really want to reduce carbon dioxide? Because what will happen then, there won't be a lot of oxygen for us. So come on, I'm all for applying good science to all of this. Apply good science to this. Enough of the nonsense, anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, you bring up a good point. We seem to focus on a lot of the people pushing things like the Green New Deal. They want to completely change our way of living. And it's not just changing our vehicles or changing where we get our fuel. It's literally changing how we exist. And why can't we spend some of that money to go to do like research and development on carbon capture? If carbon emissions are that big of a concern, not just environmentally, but for our health and things like that, why not focus some of that money on research and development versus I've got to start driving a electric vehicle tomorrow and I need to power my home on unicorn juice? Like, why is it got to be that way when we could be using the money on other things? I don't know what else to say really other than that, but I will tell you personally, talking about being good stewards, I have tried to be more mindful of maybe the amount of plastic that I do give my kids. I help pack my kids' lunches, and we use a lot of the little plastic baggies. And I'm not doing it to save the earth necessarily, but it does seem wasteful. Why would I give you 6 plastic bags for a sandwich and chips and all these other things? I will put things in a washable container. Yes, it's going to use some water. Everything's going to have a negative. I mean, there are things that we could do to be good stewards, but it doesn't mean that we need to destroy our economy to save the earth. No. Because if we were to go to start burning a bunch of other stuff tomorrow because we're all dirt poor people in a horrible economy, you're going to have a negative environmental impact there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, let's use alternative energy. You fly across this country, you see a lot more windmills now. I think that's absolutely wonderful.
In the Midwest, particularly.
And by the way, windmills are not a new creation. They've been around a long, long time, and I think it's just great to use that kind of thing. It's if you want to use some alternative fuels, but I'm sorry, 747s do not fly on windmills.
That's right.
And they will not for a long time now. That's the thing with when you ramrod it's got to be my way or you're a horrible oil-funded person. You're not allowing the market to come up with the next best thing.
We talk about this and we're having discussions about these sorts of things, but there is a very serious aspect to this coming up in this election campaign. Most of the Democrats are into the Green New Deal.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a huge expense with that, not to mention upfront expense, but not to mention what it's going to cost households if you have to change fuels and how much is going to be charged, carbon taxes and all that kind of thing, which you keep your eye on, Chris. Chris, thanks for joining us. Chris Woodward from the newsroom, and we'll continue to keep you up to date on all of this, the arguments over so-called global warming And I guess we better pray for the folks in Idaho, Montana, and Washington State this weekend. 50 inches of snow headed your direction. You need to be very careful, folks. All right, much more ahead here on the Friday edition of Focal Point. We're right back after this.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
The demographic, clinical, behavioral, family, and financial information in your computerized medical records are gold. United Health Group's data division alone earned $8.1 billion in revenue in 2017. Now, Epic, the electronic health records giant, is using their computerized record system to gather information from 20 million patients for research. So far, 9 health systems with a total of 7.7 million patients have agreed to release the data. The systems participate by letting Epic use the patient data already housed in the Epic cloud-based electronic health record system the hospitals use. So far, no mention of patient consent, but under HIPAA, consent is not required.
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly e-News Update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
Hey, that commentator's only telling one side of it, and it's not even right. Some news service.
That's just one of the reasons I start my day and the news cycle with onenewsnow.com.
Never heard of it. One News what?
Here, I pulled it up on my app for you. One News Now is the news of the day, but without the bias of the left. They're a division of the American Family Association, so their lens is biblical, not liberal.
OneNewsNow.com. Hey, thanks.
You're welcome.
AFR's own J.J. Jasper is a morning on-air personality, author, comedian, Christian, and family man. J.J.'s also a keynote speaker at banquets, men's ministry events, pregnancy center fundraisers, and more. Here's what others are saying.
JJ helped us set a record for the most funds raised at our banquet. This banquet was our best banquet ever, thanks to JJ Jasper.
Information on JJ's availability to speak at your event is at jjjasper.com.
So there's this guy named Jordan, and he's a healthy guy. He's a dad of 6, and he works as a guide in Alaska. But then he goes to the doctor, and he's diagnosed with cancer, stage 4. And here's the thing. He had switched from medical insurance to MediShare, which is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry. So the question for Jordan and his wife, Jenny, was, is this really going to work?
Our medical bills exceeded $160,000. MediShare members shared all our bills.
And it was about more than just the money, too. This is a real community.
MediShare is a family, a group of people that stick with you through the hardest times of your life. I just don't know how I could have done it without MediShare.
It's so worth looking into. There's a reason this is growing so fast. If you want to find out more, here's a number for you. 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
American Family Radio.
You're listening to Focal Point with Bryan Fisher.
And we're back to Focal Point. Fred sitting in for Bryan today. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. 888-589-8840. And anything we've talked about today, certainly the president's response thus far to the whole whistleblowers story. Where do you think it's going to go? Do you actually think it'll move forward to a full impeachment inquiry? Articles of impeachment being formed and going to the Senate. Do you think it's going to get that far? I think if the Democrats have their way, it'll get that far. It's going to be interesting to see how Republicans, how much support he gets from Republicans. A little disturbed by Marco Rubio, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. I mean, oh my, sounding somewhat like a Democrat. This needs to be seriously investigated, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes I wonder, about these Republicans. Now, Susan Collins, I understand, but Marco Rubio and some of these others who actually are believing the president had a illegal agenda at work here in all of this. And also this whole matter of indoctrination that's going on with regards to so-called global warming, climate change, whatever you want to talk, whatever you want want to refer to it. Come on, folks. And let's put in there man-made.
Yes.
That's what they believe. It's man-made.
Yeah.
Listen, if there is global warming, God's in control of this.
Absolutely.
It is so arrogant for us to think that humans could change the global climate. 70% of the earth is uninhabited. Take your kids to a globe, see how much of the ocean is there and how much of the land. You fly over the African continent, the north end of the African continent, and I've done this before in flying from Amsterdam down to Johannesburg. There's several hours where there's nothing below you.
Right.
In the northern part of the African continent. There's huge, you fly across the United States, fly sometime from Atlanta to Los Angeles. Once you get beyond Dallas, there's not much there, folks. So the idea, just think about this stuff. The idea that mankind is changing the global climate and that we can change it back somehow. Yes, be good stewards.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that man is controlling the global climate, it's just not there.
You know, I really think what we're doing to the children in this world is child abuse. What happened to Greta, how she acted. Yes, I feel like she was coached, but I also feel like she believed everything she was saying.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So if it's not child abuse, are we brainwashing these kids in our public schools and over the media? Are they being brainwashed into this?
Yeah.
Or are they being coached?
Well, and that's the thing. Brainwash, what you really do is get rid of rational thinking.
Right.
In other words, how much has she been exposed to the other side of the story? There are hundreds of people who study climate for a living. They are professionals, and they don't agree with this stuff. But their voices are never heard.
Never, ever.
And these kids are not hearing those voices.
Exactly.
These kids aren't being challenged to find the truth out for themselves. They're just being told. And because here's what else has happened. If you disagree with the Greta Thunbergs and her ideology, you are mocked.
That's right.
Or you are a problem, and we're going to shut your voice down. That's what we're going to do.
Exactly.
That's what's going on in our country today. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Let's go to our phones right now. Let's head first to Pennsylvania and Donna. Donna, welcome to the program. Go ahead.
I just wanted to talk in regards to the impeachment in Congress.
Yes.
You know, I'd like to recommend that everybody would read George Orwell's Animal Farm book.
Okay.
Congress is currently a reenactment of that book, manufacturing crimes and pushing a false narrative to smear the person that they want to take out. This is the way communism and socialism work. And I mean, enforcing confessions also from people like Mike Flynn based on false accusations. And if they come into power, you think President Trump's getting it now. We will be next. We will be next.
Oh.
This is the way they work.
Donna, I think you're exactly
recommend
right.
everybody would read that book.
Yeah. Donna, I think you're exactly right. I think I think it would go, Joe Biden is considered the moderate candidate, but you look down the line, the Elizabeth Warrens, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, down the line, if any of those individuals are elected, and I mean, certainly Elizabeth Warren, certainly Bernie Sanders. If you look at their announced agenda for the climate, you're going to see exactly what you're going to see Greta Thunberg's ideology put into public policy in this country. And it will cost a lot of money. It'll cost people jobs. I mean, I hope people are seriously looking at the platform, the agenda of these Democrat candidates. And if you disagree with them, should they get in office, you will be punished. That's all there is. There's no room for opposing points of view when it comes to the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warrens and others that are on that candidate list. There's no room for opposing views. We will punish you. That's all there is to it. And our caller is exactly right, Donna, that what Trump is experiencing now from the far left, Those of us who are conservative, have biblical points of view, we will face the same sort of thing. And you think I'm exaggerating here? Let me mention the name of Barronelle Stutzman. Let me mention the name of Jack Phillips. Let's talk about the Kleins in Oregon. If you don't know those names, you need to. Those are Christians that have been punished by left-wing courts and so-called human rights commissions across this country for simply exercising their Christian beliefs when it comes to homosexuality. That kind of punishment, that kind of persecution against Christians in this country will only be amplified, after the election next year if some of these left-wing candidates get elected. All right, let's go to Pontotoc, I believe it is, Mississippi. Ruth is on the line. Ruth, go ahead. Go ahead, Ruth.
Hi there, Brother Fred. This is Ruth. I think he misunderstood me. It's not Rose. It's Ruth Barnes. I was under your Sunday school teaching at Harrisburg. Yeah, first off, of course, I totally agree with everything you said. I love all of y'all at AFA and American Family Radio Station. Y'all are my family, brothers and sisters. And first, of course, we just got to keep praying and trusting God. But, yes, he wants us to be active. And I tell you what, I'll oppose him. If it takes me to my death, I'll oppose him. I'm splattering Facebook with the moral outcry petition. Please have folks to sign that. It's to end abortion. Joseph Parker and them are going before the Supreme Court to present a bunch of petitions. I'd like zillions, unlimited amounts to Washington to present this petition. And it's an ongoing thing, so people can find it on American Family Association. But, Brother Fred, would you please remind folks of how Hillary did back when they were running for president and how she hammered the server at her house. She had confidential, classified federal information at her house, and she hammered that server to where it destroyed 30,000 emails. She destroyed the evidence because she's the evil, guilty one. And also Biden did what he did in May of 2018 by trying to do that bribe and firing that prosecutor, saying they weren't going to give $1 billion. He did that behind Trump's back when Trump was president. Yep. Please remind folks of that.
Absolutely, Ruth. I sure appreciate that. That's it exactly. Who's guilty of obstruction of justice? Hillary Clinton. But she had a lot of friends in the Justice Department, including former FBI Director James Comey. We all know this now. All that truth is out there. I'm still hoping the Inspector General Horowitz, he's got one more report to come. And that report is basically investigating all that went on leading up to the announcement of the Mueller investigation. All the players that were involved. I believe to this day, it certainly went to the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, and I believe it even went further right to the Oval Office. I think Barack Obama was aware of the plan to take down Donald Trump legally, I'm talking. Legally. That was the plan. And to uphold Hillary Clinton. We all know that now. Peter Strzok, corrupt FBI agent. His girlfriend, Lisa Page. We have all their texts between them. They hated Donald Trump. There was a campaign, there was a plan in place to discredit, to try to link him to the Russians. And the Mueller investigation was all about, was it any wonder why President Trump wanted to fire Comey? Because Trump knew all of this was going on. And yet he waited out. Donald Trump, probably the last thing he wanted to describe him as being a patient man, but I think he demonstrated incredible patience. He knew the truth about the so-called Mueller investigation into Russian collusion, but he let it play out for 2 years. In my mind, that's amazing patience that he displayed. All right, Sheila in Kansas. Go ahead, Sheila. Welcome.
Yes, I do believe the Democratic Party is taking things totally out of context to their political favor. as far as the letter that's being read from
the whistleblower,
Trump's conversation with the Ukraine,
uh-huh.
Because there is hard drives over there that has all of the information on it, and Trump was, for our country's political safety, is asking for those hard drives, and they've turned it all around just like they did with the tax thing. I believe his name was McLaughlin. They dusted off he's already innocent 10 years ago or better, and then they dusted him off to retry him to get something against Trump. And the Democrats are always full of these tricks.
And they can get away with it, Sheila, and here's the problem. The media is on their side. That's the bottom line. The media doesn't hold them accountable, and quite frankly, a lot of the judicial system in this country, too. When you have judges early on in the Trump administration, remember he wanted to cut back on the number of refugees coming in from terrorist sponsoring Islamic countries. You had federal judges saying, I'm ruling against you because I don't like what you said during the election campaign. Is that what we're coming down to? They're supposed to make judgments based on the law, not because they don't like the candidate. And by the way, it was not a ban on refugees from all Muslim countries. That keeps being parroted out there. No, it was from terrorist sponsoring countries like Iran, like Yemen, like Syria. Those were the problems right there. Not all Muslim nations. Saudi Arabia wasn't on that list. Maybe should have been. Some people say, that's where a lot of the 9/11 terrorists came from and were sponsored by. But that's another story. All right. Let's try to get one more call in here, Rob. Daniel in Illinois, welcome to the program. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call. I agree with the lady that was just on. I believe he sent William Barr over there to get those hard drives before the Democrats get their hands on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Democrats, I think they're just pure evil.
Well, I think they are willing, and I'm going to be kind here, they're willing to distort the truth in order to succeed in their agenda. And and I'll keep repeating this, you can do that if you've got the mainstream media on your side. If you don't have reporters questioning what you're doing, questioning the veracity of what you are saying publicly, it's a love fest between the media and the Democrats, folks. That's where it is right now. And there are news outlets like American Family News, some on Fox News, not all. Shepard Smith is a Democrat. I'm sorry. That program in the afternoons, it's the Democrat Hour on Fox News. Shepard Smith, he is all in with the Democrats. There's just no question about that. But you've got to understand that. And when you're reading most of the mainstream media online, you've got to be very careful, folks, because they are all in with the Democrats. If you didn't know that, that is the case. Hey, listen, it's been great to be with you today. Lord willing, we'll be back with you for Bryan on Monday as he's taking a little bit of a break. And I hope you have a great weekend. Make sure you get together with your church family, because that's where you'll be encouraged and I think gain perspective on what's going on in our world. Have yourself a great weekend. In the meantime, stay tuned to more great programming here on American Family Radio. God bless you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
The